this session we are going to talk about dimensions of business communication. It is basically continuation from the previous part which we just discussed few minutes ago. So where we discussed two dimensions of business communication, and now the third dimension we are going to take up. So third dimension is intra and inter organization business communication. Right. So as the name suggests, intra-organization business communication, which means the communication which takes place within the business is intra-business communication. What are the matrices we will discuss? How does it happen? Like what are the means of intra-organization business communication? So it could be written, it could be spoken, which means both are verbal, right? It could be non-verbal as well. A boss just passing by and gives you a smile, even that is communication. A boss just passing by gives you thumbs up is a business communication within the organization, right? Intra-business communication, but it was an example of non-verbal. So it could be written, spoken, audio, video, any form, any means can be used. It could be face-to-face communication, you can be presenting something in a PowerPoint presentation, you could be using emails, you could be using letters, you could be using memos, notices, circulars, text message, SMS, right? You could be doing any teleconferencing, video conferencing, you could be using podcasts, webcasts. These are the latest things, they are in things which are now used by the business organization for intra and inter communication both, right? So intra business communication basically is happening between the employees of an organization. So no outsider party or individual is involved in this communication, right? So intra business communication basically is dealing with the internal stakeholders. So this is a communication that any organization has with its internal stakeholders, be it employees, executives, non-executives, board members, partners, promoters. So that's what we are doing in the intra organization business communication. So there are four matrices to this intra-organizational communication. What are those four matrices? Number one, organizational culture. Number two, organization policies. Traditional communication, innovative communication. There are four matrices to the concept of intra-organizational communication. So let's take them one by one. Organizational culture. How does it affect the communication? How does communication is actually affected by this matrices? So culture decides basically the organizational culture will decide that who can write to whom, which medium of writing would be used, who can put up a phone or pick up a phone and call, who cannot. These are the organizational culture, So there's a culture to wish everyone before you go to your seat. So it will decide what kind of communication you have. If the culture is to write only an email, not to write anything on a text message. So this is the culture. So culture becomes inherent in the system, and employees are bound to follow that. Somehow they need to adopt. Naturally, it happens that every employee, everyone working in the organization need to follow that. Okay. So the first matrices in the organizational communication is organizational culture. Organizational policies. Policies are written documents, written guidelines about how to deal a particular situation, a person, how to deal different business function, right? Let's say there could be a policy that a business review report of the production shall be sent to the production general manager by every night, latest by 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. Your shift ends at 8 p.m. This is organizational policy. So you are assistant manager in production. you have to write a production report. So you would be following the policy. You will be, or you may follow the guideline if the company has. You may follow the templates if the company has. And the policy is not to disclose, let's say, any point of, let's say, any breakdown in the plant. So do not put up in the daily report, put up a separate report. This is the organizational policy that one should never be talking about while preparing the production report about the breakdown, who caused it. There should be a separate report. This is a policy which you know. So you will certainly, if you are a production executive or assistant production manager, you are writing the report, and on a particular day some breakdown has happened in the plant, in the machinery. So you will follow the guideline, the policy, unless system will not entertain, right? So that's the second aspect of organizational communication. The third aspect is traditional communication, and fourth is innovative communication. So traditional communication means what? So we are using the traditional methods of writing an email, or we are using innovative method. The podcast is, as I said, webcast, they are the innovative method. So traditional method for intra-organization communication. So let's say in the morning, you come as a CEO and you communicate the agenda for the day, or you all need to achieve this particular objective on that particular day. So this is to the employee, so it is intra business communication. And since you have just issued a notice, it's a traditional communication. Okay. Then we have innovative method. Innovative method, instead of writing it in a letter, you just ask the person by just sending a WhatsApp message, by sending a video, by sending a picture, or you receive a picture of the plant they are working, or a live demo in terms of let's say video of the program functioning. So you are a software engineer and you are, let's say, you are writing a code for a particular function at a business place. So so this is an innovative communication where you are sharing your screen live, by share screen, or you are making a Zoom meeting and you are actually showing the code written by you. So that's an innovative communication. But in all the examples, this communication is happening within the organization, right? So that's why we call it as intra-organizational communication. Now the second is inter-organization business communication. The communication that any organization has with its external stakeholders, be it clients, be it suppliers, stakeholders, financial institutions, bankers, government, regulatory bodies like SEBI we have in our country, pollution board, those are regulatory bodies. So the communication that any organization has with its external stakeholders, so so that is inter-organization business communication. Of course, this is far important because you need to be very, very careful when you are communicating. And like intra-organizational business communication, the person can actually use either face-to-face communication, presentation, email, letter, brochure, memo, notice, circular, text message for that matter, and teleconference, video conference, podcast. So these are the upcoming, podcast, website. They are upcoming aspects of business communication. So this is in the inter-organizational business communication. So you can do it either written, spoken, audio, video, any mode which you are comfortable at, or you think this will be more beneficial to the organization and for you to be more effective in communicating, right? This is inter-organization business communication, has 4 matrices: corporate identity, networking, traditional commitment, innovative communication. So what is corporate identity? So how identity is, you all know how you are known, perceived by anyone is your corporate identity, is your identity. And when we say corporate identity, how, so which company is this, which sector it is working in, where the headquarter. So those are the points which help us to identify a faculty, a company. Okay, so the corporate identity would decide that what do you think in terms of intra-organization communication. What would you think would depend upon the company you work for, the corporate identity you have so far. And the second thing which will decide is networking, how bad or good you are in the networking skills. Right, nowadays networking is really picking up. Most of the business schools, including ours, including the Gurugram University, is teaching one separate course on networking. Right, so this is a very important aspect of inter-organizational communication, where we use identity, networking, we use traditional communication, innovative communication, all these aspects for the purpose of for the purpose of effective inter-organizational communication. Okay, so these were the 4 matrices you have or we have for inter. Now, in the 4th dimension to the business communication is cultural dimension. This is very important. We have subjects like cross culture, we have subjects which like diversity. So these are the important areas which are growing very fast, and one cannot be effective communicator if one doesn't understand the importance of cultural business communication. So in this we have 2 aspects to it: intra-cultural business organization and intercultural business organization. Right. So in intra-cultural communication is the communication that an individual or an organization has within its own culture. Okay, so this particular dimension of business communication, which is intraculture we are talking, so it's a communication that an individual or a group of people, it's not necessary that only an individual will be having a communication, so they have within its own culture. So that is something intraculture business communication. Something similar language, both verbal and non-verbal, same geographic inheritance, same socio-political background, the same religious or ethical beliefs or the organizational culture. So if we have, so intraculture business communication is dependent on these things, that people who are from the same city, from the same cultural background, same religion may gel up better than the people who are not, right? So the social political background matters a lot for intracultural communication. Okay. So there are 4 matrices to intracultural communication. The first one is contextual similarity, then we have social similarity, then third one we have communication similarity, and the 4th one we have legal and entire ethical similarity. So let's take them one by one. It's an important topic for that matter. So the first one is under the cultural environment or cultural communication. The first one is contextual security. So what is contextual? In the context, in which context we are talking. So intrapersonal communication, intracultural communication will depend upon what kind of context. Is there any similarity in the context you are referring and I am referring? If we are from the 2 different culture in the same organization, are we being able to understand the corporate culture of the company we are working? We are 2 people, but we have individual aspirations, we have individual objectives, right? So the commercial similarity will depend upon on the contextual similarity you have, right? The second aspect to this dimension is social similarity. If you are financially equal, you are at par, you will be able to communicate better with the person because you think he understands or he or she faces the same problem. But if there's social inequality, if there's no social equity, then certainly there is going to be some gap in the business communication, right? So that was the second aspect of this dimension. The third aspect is communication similarity. So how do you communicate? Do we use the same language? Do we use the same medium? Like somebody uses, let's say, somebody uses Google.com, like Google. Let's say somebody uses communication as somebody uses. Let's take an example here. So there's a communication similarity means I also speak in English and you also speak in English. I also speak in French, you also speak in French. I am very good in sign language, you are also very good in sign language. So that is a communication similarity, right? So one is your contextual similarity, another is your social similarity. Third one which we are discussing is communication similarity. So we are able to communicate well because we have similarity. It's sometimes it is difficult because of the language you use or the person you are talking to, or your boss uses or your junior uses, right? So if that gap is there, it becomes an bottleneck in the effective communication. And the fourth one is legal and let's say ethical similarity. There are people who would always be on the legal side. They will never like to share any information which is wrong, which is incorrect. They would never like to boast something which is incorrect. They would never like to share any confidential matter, any confidential information, though they know they are in the possession of that information. So people are legal and they are ethical. We have a topic of ethical communication. So if two people have ethical similarity and their knowledge about legal or their respect for legal compliance is same, the communication, the effectiveness of communication would be different than the two people who do not have the similarity, right? So in all there are 4 matrices to the intra-cultural communication, and they all are, mind you, very, very important. The contextual, because if you have the same context, so intra means within the organization, okay? So if you both have the same context, you are referring to the same meeting, you are referring to the same report, you are referring to the same boss, you are referring to the same event or the incident, then understanding would be different. But if the context is altogether different, I am referring to a report which I received from South Asia, you are referring to a report which you received from a team in North America, certainly there would be some issue. So the context is not similar here, okay? And as I discussed, the social similarity also would decide the quality of the effectiveness of business communication. Your communication similarity, certainly, that how do you speak. If I am very very good in my vocabulary and I use those jargons, I use those difficult words, I use technical words, and other person whom I am communicating to doesn't understand, be it written or be it spoken communication, right? So in that business there is going to be a problem because there is a communication dissimilarity, okay? So these are the 4 aspects of intra-cultural communication. Now we talk about intercultural business communication. This intercultural communication is the communication that an individual or a group of organization has with the institutions or people outside the culture, right? So in interculture, what was happening? So we were communicating within the business. Now here somebody or organization in itself or some individual for the organization is communicating to the outside world. It could be one individual, it could be group of people, or it could be an organization. Let's say I am communicating to the law enforcement agencies. I am legal advisor to the company and I am dealing with the court case. I am communicating to the judge. I am, let's say, I am working with the organization as PRO and I am communicating to the outside world regarding any development we have in research and development, or regarding some fatal incident took place. As a PRO, I am supposed to be addressing that. So intercultural communication is basically between individuals of one to the another organization, or organization in itself to the other organization outside the business. Now this intercultural communication can be both verbal and non-verbal, right? That though most of the time you will see that this communication is verbal, either written. In verbal we have both written and the the spoken one, oral one, but it could be non-verbal as well. So if you are as an organization, as a police department, let's say you are just communicating by a sign where you are holding hand. I mean, a poster showing police holding hand of an old lady, holding hand of a child in a picture. There are a couple of people who are there and a policeman or women holding hand of those people. What does it mean? What do you think? Why did I give this example? This is a good example which is non-verbal, of course, by the organization, which is police department here, to the outside world, saying we are here to help you, we are here to give you hand, extend you a hand, right? So that's what intercultural business communication. So in terms of language, in terms of geographical inheritance, social political background, religious, ethical beliefs, organizational culture, there are a couple of factors which affect the quality of intercultural business communication, right? These are the factors, including your religion, including your political background, including your belief or organization culture, because belief could be different in the mind of one person to the another person. So how do somebody perceive the police department of a particular state in general will depend how much importance, how much is the importance of that message which we said on a poster, a hoarding is there. So it will depend upon the belief you have about the organization. So organization culture, so how well we believe in ourselves and how well we communicate to the people we are showing in our poster, in our hoarding, that will decide the quality of the business communication, the effectiveness of business communication, right? So like the intracultural communication, in intercultural communication we have 4 matrices: contextual diversity, social diversity, communication diversity, legal and ethical diversity. If you remember, in the intracultural concept or business communication, we talked about 4 similarities, and now we are talking about 4 diversities, 4 unsimilarities, dissimilarities. Okay, so the first one is your contextual diversity. If there is a 2 organizations or one organization and one person from the other organization, if they are communicating and if they come from the diverse context, they do not have the same context, I may not be able to interpret the picture of that police department showing hand. I may assume it's just a picture because my context is it didn't come to my mind at all. My understanding is not that good, but police department wanted to show through that picture that they are here to help people, right? But you could not have the context or understanding because of the diversity in your culture. Holding hand could be different thing, right? So you are from some other state, some other background, you could not comprehend that. that's the contextual diversity, that my context is different than your context. Then we have social diversity. We know we all come from different social segments of the society. So the person who is working in one organization is communicating to the other person in other organization, and they both are from the different social background. Certainly there would be some gap, right? So we need to take care of this fact as well, that when we are communicating to the outside world, so this matters that is there any social diversity? One organization to the other organization, or one employee of the organization to the other employee of the other organization. Okay, so we have to take care of this social diversity, that if the people come from different social setups and background. Communication diversity, of course, is very important. It's not necessary that everybody may hold the same designation. General manager production of X company communicating to general manager of the Y company, but they may come with different communication diversity. One person could be very good in spoken language, another could be very good in written. One person is good in foreign language, another is not. So that diversity also affects the communication quality. Lastly, legal and ethical diversity. So individuals who take it casual, they do not worry about what they are writing or communicating on a phone, right? And communicating to someone else who is very ethical and very legally compliant person, he or she may perceive it differently, and then how you are. So your intentions were different. You just intended to be sharing something casually, but the other organization where the legal, ethical, compliances are very high, this message will be distorted. That will become as a barrier, that will not be perceived the way you want it to. So these are the matrices to the intercultural communication. So I hope you could comprehend these two aspects very well, where we discussed organizational dimensions in communication, and we discuss inter and intra both. So with this I will wind up for this session today.